Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Baranek,
And I'm Nate Kapa, and we're both certified prosthetists from Bremer Prosthetics.
and we want to welcome you to our new podcast.
Yeah, this is the Step Up podcast. This is our first episode here. So today, a little bit what we're going to talk about. We're going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about kind of who we are, why we do this, why it's so important for us, and then also a little bit about Bremer Prosthetics.
What is Bremer Prosthetics and what that means to us and why we think you might care,
Right.
or why you should care.
So Scott, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? Just give a little introduction of yourself. What brought you into prosthetics? What keeps you going?
So I'm a certified prosthetist. I started working in prosthetics in 1995 after I lost my leg in a motorcycle accident in September of 1994. I'm a below the knee or a transtibial amputee, and I am very active as an amputee and very active, like I said, as a prosthetist. So prosthetics are a big part of my life, you could say. When I say I'm active as an amputee, I'm a runner. I do triathlons, or I have done triathlons. I guess I'm training for one now, or at least I'm supposed to be.
That's how training usually goes.
Yeah. I like to water ski when I have a lake, and just try to stay active whenever I can. So
Yeah. And so as Scott said, my name's Nate, and I didn't have limb loss. That's not kind of what spurred my journey into prosthetics, but I go back all the way. My prosthetics, kind of the things in life that kind of directed me to prosthetics started when I was about 15 years old, and I was in high school. And I had a biology teacher that I was pretty close with, and spent a lot of time with him and all this stuff. And just one day he looked at me and he said, "You need to do prosthetics." And as a 15-year-old, I kind of looked at him like, "Well, yeah, you're kind of crazy, because I'm not thinking about what I'm gonna do later on,
Right.
and what's prosthetics and why do you think I should do it?" But whatever. Obviously, he planted a seed in my head at that point as a young person, because I ended up going to college for biomedical engineering.
Right.
And so through that process, there's a little bit of exposure to prosthetics, but not really. Such a small thing that, in school, never really talked about prosthetics, never really got, your education wasn't really driven towards that. So I really thought that I wanted to do orthopedic implants, artificial knees, artificial hips, those kinds of things, and be a designer for them.
Right.
So brings me to the time when I graduated. I graduate from college. I've got an interview lined up, just like you do, to get a job. And then right at that time, there was a big class action lawsuit in that space. And all the companies did a hiring freeze.
Wow.
So the people that I was been talking to are like, your name is on our list and we'll be happy to interview you, but we don't know when interviews are going to be happening.
Right.
We don't know what's next. So now my whole, this has been my plan this whole time. Everything's kind of thrown to the side. Like, what do I do now? So
Right.
I have a degree. I go back and I'm living with my parents, trying to figure out what's next for me. In that time, there's a big windstorm that knocks some siding off my parents' house. The person who comes to fix that siding was wearing a prosthesis. I started to talk to him a little bit about it, kind of re-engage some interest, and he says, "Well, the guy that builds my prosthesis, he likes young people, and you're educated. He'd probably let you, come in and see what this is about if you're interested." So I called up Tom Bremer at the time and got an interview scheduled, and put on the tie and got a resume and walked into the door to a company that wasn't hiring.
Yeah.
And through my enthusiasm through those stuff, got a job.
Right.
And through that career, as I got exposed to it, I was like, life led me in the right direction.
Right.
I would have hated life sitting in front of a computer designing things.
Right.
This lets me work with my hands. It lets me work with people. It gives me unique challenges all the time. It's just one of those things that it really, once I found this, it's like my strengths get to shine in
Right.
prosthetics. This is a career. That biology teacher back when I was 15, I'm not sure how he knew. I don't even know what he knew about prosthetics.
Yep.
But how he knew, how he had that foresight. But Mr. Tallman, thanks.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about that. And so that brought me to this point. Through my career, I've really been fortunate that I get to help so many people in so many different ways, both as a certified prosthetist, through different advocacy efforts, years as president of the Michigan Orthotics Prosthetics Association, current president of the National Association for the Advancement of Orthotics and Prosthetics. I worked with state-based legislation efforts through So Everybody Can Move, through lots of different things. So clearly I wouldn't be so involved, so deep in it if it wasn't something that just drove me and that I ultimately just love.
Right.
And so even though it doesn't affect me personally, it's something that I take very personally, and I feel like I'm blessed to do this job.
Right. I laugh when you say I got a job with a company that wasn't hiring. I remember my first job was at Oakland Orthopedics, and I was doing an interview similar, and Vivian Smith was the owner of the company, and I was doing an interview up front with somebody else, and she ended up making her way up front, and I was talking to her, and she said she had Nina interviewing me, and she was supposed to blow me off, and she ended up hiring me kind of similar to the same way, and here I am.
Right.
So.
Right.
But.
And so, how did you end up from there? How did you end up at Bremer Prosthetics? What's some of that history?
Well, my history was I started, on the job training, and my first experience was Vivian said, "Why would I hire you? You don't have any experience." And I said, people see me walk on your prosthesis, and they seem to be pretty impressed with that. I said, so if you let me do marketing 3 days a week, I'd like to spend the other 2 days in the lab. From there, I became BOC certified, then eventually ABC certified. Then, I wanted to own my own business. I ended up going to Atlanta for a while to get out of a non-compete contract, and came back here and partnered up with Tom and met you. And I've been here since 2011. And, that was my journey into working for myself. And, but obviously it was a lot in between, but yeah.
Sure.
Sure. So, but working in prosthetics has been, I guess the thing that I really like about working here, and what I realized along the way, is that I really wanted to work at a place where I could have ownership of making my own decisions, and, seeing patients and doing things my way. And so that when I'm in the patient room, that they're working with, knowing that they're working with the person who makes all the decisions.
Right.
That was really important to me,
Right. I think anybody that knows either you or I would pretty quickly diagnose the fact that, control is important to us, and having control of something that's so important as how a prosthesis is made for someone. That's something that we don't outsource decisions on lightly at all. We do it because we have great staff, we have great people that we work with, that we get to collaborate with every day. Right. So we don't have to be the only ones making those decisions. Right. But the end of the day is, if we don't trust how you're going to get to those decisions, and what information you're processing, you're not going to be part of our team. Right. And so that's, to me, in terms of Bremer Prosthetics, that's one of the most important things. We can sit here as the face of Bremer Prosthetics and, talk about, our experiences and everything, but really it's our whole team, isn't it? And it's the passion that everybody in our office brings, whether it's your office here in Saginaw, my office in Flint, when we're together in Lansing, those things, I hear it when I'm here, I hear it in our other offices, that when people walk in the door, they say they feel like they're immediately included. It's the experience from the time, from not even the time you walk in the door, but from the phone call. Right. If we get a consultation, the way everyone handles, I think it's deeply ingrained, and I think that what happens when people lose a limb, this is a change in their life. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to impact their life so that we can help improve that. Right. From that point forward, they're coming to us for help. Right. And we're trying to make sure that they realize, or we want them to realize right away, that when they contact us, however that happens, that this is the start of that process. Right. We get right into our culture, right? This patient first and serving this person who's in need is the culture of everyone who works with us. Yes. I remember, I've done this long enough now that obviously there's times where things are a good fit with our team, and sometimes there's things that are a bad fit. I remember specifically having somebody that was working with us, and it wasn't going so well, and we're sitting there, and some decisions were made, and there's a bit of an argument, and I'm talking about how this impacts the patient. And this person, in his frustration, looks at me and said, "Well, that's your problem. It's always about the patient with you." And I just thought, I sit back and think, if that's what somebody's criticism is, somebody that's working with me and sees me every day behind the scenes, right? And their criticism is that that I'm always putting the patient above everything else, then I'm doing something right.
Right. Yeah. I'll take it.
If that's the level of, if that's what comes out during frustration,
Right.
well, then I'm living this. I'm not saying it.
Right.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so even though that was a bad experience, I don't want to go through that experience again.
Right.
It's also something that those words really resonated with me of, well, that's what somebody said when they were mad at me.
Yeah.
That was the knock.
Yeah.
Is that I care about the patients, and I put their thoughts as the first decision when I'm making decisions.
I mean, in medical, we hear it all the time.
Yeah.
You're supposed to put the patient first,
Right.
but too often times, it's not usually what we see.
Right. Right. It's hard. It's hard to do, right?
It is.
It's not.
It's easy to say.
It's easy to say. It's a hard way to do it.
Too many other things really
Right.
factor in that steer how decisions are being made.
Right.
And it
Right.
isn't always driven by what's best for the patient.
Right. And so, through these series of podcasts, we're really going to get into lots of specific issues and kind of talk about, what does a process look like to get a prosthesis? What are specific things like running, different advocacy efforts, insurance coverage, lots of different topics. But with all of these, I think we really, even though these are all factors in our decision, it's how does this affect the patient? And I'm really hoping that, through our conversations here and through the podcast, that shines through.
Right.
That how much that means to us and how passionate we are about that experience of the people that are coming here in need is what is the foundation of who we are and what makes Bremer Prosthetics what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, also like reaching out to people, like if there's somebody out there who's experiencing limb loss, and that at the beginning of that journey, it's tough.
Right.
I mean, we always say if you're losing a limb, you're less than 1% of the population now, and that's you're in a small group, and there's not a lot of people to turn to, or you may not. Unfortunately, if you know someone who lost a limb, that may not have been a good experience.
Right.
So if we can reach out to someone and let them know, maybe you're not somewhere where you can go to Bremer Prosthetics, but you might hear about us and say, okay, now I'm educated and I can start to reach out and say, this is the experience that I want.
Right.
So maybe if you can't come to us, find something like that, and this is what I want my experience to be like, because we did that before with our step-up programs, and we were having people join us through the web sites when we were online. So
or even when we were hosting in person, we often had people from other clinics come. And I mean, because it is important for us to help our patients, right? I mean, that's very important, but it doesn't stop there.
No.
I mean, we realize there's only so many people that you and I and our staff in our office, we can't help everyone, right? Not through direct care. So there's lots of indirect ways that we can help more people. And that's what I really hope this podcast, people can get this education piece out of this. They can learn how to advocate for themselves. They can kind of learn what to expect and just have a better foundational knowledge about prosthetics and limb loss overall, so that, that we can help them and their clinicians get good outcomes also.
Yeah. And just knowing the right questions to ask and what that experience should be like, and all those things that if you're in the beginning of that journey, you don't even know where to start.
Right. So we're really excited about the podcast, the Step Up podcast. I think this is going to be something that we hope to kind of develop through time and, continue based on our success. And thanks for joining us for our very first episode. We'll be, our website is www.bremerprosthetics.com. There's lots of information, lots of, more behind the scenes ways to get to know Scott and I. Here's some testimonials from our patients, see some resources, community programs that we're involved in, those kinds of things. And we're also really active in Facebook and on YouTube, and our channels have lots of content there that's both new content and old content. So big libraries of things that you can kind of go through to help enhance your experience and to use to answer questions. Especially now that we're not here face to face as patients, we hope that you can look at this as kind of just an informational source. We're not hoping that you call us and become our patient. We're hoping that you learn the process and that overall you can do better with your prosthesis than you're doing right now, or continue to do as well as you're doing. Those things.
Or maybe you want to try some different challenges or new experiences in life, or like learning to run or do
Yep.
some different challenges in life, then that there could be some exercises and things like that that could help you through those challenges. So
Yep. So through the course of our podcast here, we'll be doing deep dives and stuff. So we hope that you find the content to be very informative and helpful. And we look forward to seeing you soon.